Hello, readers. Welcome to 20 Questions with Your Favorite Author, where we ask authors important questions like why would you agree to be on this podcast? I'm Kelly Lynn Colby, editorial director at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. Our guest this week is Nathan Ameye, lit RPG author and hobby enthusiast. Nathan grew up exploring the Ozark Mountains. He has far too many hobbies to be really good at any of them. He eventually discovered a small but thriving genre of game-centered literature and, fascinated by the interweaving of game elements into fiction, wrote his debut novel as a post-apocalyptic lit RPG adventure set in the Ozark Mountains. It's not your favorite now, he will be after. Hey, Nathan, how are you this evening?
Great. It's hard to resist the urge to dance around like Ramon.
Right? It's fun. We like the music. It's very handy. You had so much, though. Like, it was hard to squeeze it in my time frame. I have to say, man after my own heart with all of your hobbies. I can't stop myself either.
Mostly.
Mostly. Well, where do you think that comes from? Like, that need to keep learning something new?
I mean, I don't know. It's partly just shiny syndrome, right? Like, I get decent at one thing, and I'm like, well, that was cool. What if I did a totally different thing? From, homebrewing to guitar playing to rock climbing to fencing to fishing, whatever.
Nice.
Longer than others, but just trying new things. There's just something about learning stuff.
Right? It's fun. Yes. Completely understand.
So it's part of the Fey Nexus books. The main character he likes to wood carve.
That's so cool.
I mean, I used to whittle a lot with my grandpa, and then I started writing this book, brought it to the character, and loved it, and thought, well, yeah, of course I need to pick that back up. So, just carve little ugly wizard heads and gnome figurines and stuff like that.
That does sound like fun and dangerous. You need Band-Aids.
Write what you know. I guess you can write what you know poorly. I don't know.
Well, if you know a little bit when you're writing, right?
Exactly. A little bit.
That's right.
Reason.
Yeah, Florida Kevin says the jack of all trades, master of none mentality fits well with writing. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
With an idea, and you have to kind of dig into it a little bit, and that digging is fun. So, like, 600 tabs opening, 3 windows worth of crazy. So,
calling the geology professor down the street. Yeah, exactly.
Expensive. Like, you can a couple $100 into a new hobby just to try it out, and you're like, oh god, this is so much fun. Suddenly you're doing that instead of book 3.
Yeah. Hint, hint. Uh-oh. Hope your publisher isn't listening. So shh, don't tell anyone. This isn't recorded or anything. You're fine. We're not going to see him in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
So, right? You never know. I was wondering, all of these hobbies then, so you picked up wood carving again recently, you said, but you did it when you were a kid. So do you have any new one that you've tackled lately?
Oh. Man, most of them are things that I've tried young and picked back up. So, wood carving when I was a kid, and then wood carving recently, brewing when I was back in college, and home brewing again now. Blacksmithing I've just fiddled with, so that's probably the one that's nothing more than a railroad spike and a blowtorch right now, but I would love to get a real forge and stuff like that. So once the budget allows, I'm sure that will be the next thing, because I do love it.
That's so cool. I have to admire that, always wanting to learn. I love it. It also, according to your bio anyways, it looks like that you favor outdoor hobbies. You have a lot of outdoor ones. So the forge goes right along with that, man.
It does. Yeah. You don't want to do that indoors. If you got a nice spot outside, it's great. Although luckily my neighbors are a very long ways away. So
that helps. Yes. That helps for storing all of the equipment that you've gathered up over the years from the hobbies. See, it helps.
Yeah, we had to put up a shed.
It has to go somewhere. It cannot be in my living room any longer.
No.
Well, with all of your outdoor activities, what's the coolest thing you've seen while out there in the wilds of North America?
Oh man, there's just so many beautiful places out there. Um, I don't know, watching it snow in the desert was really cool. So
What?
we lived in Colorado for,
Hmm.
grew up in Missouri, lived in Colorado and came back to Missouri. But one March, we were out in Moab,
Okay.
Canyonlands and Arches National Park and all those beautiful places. It snowed on us, and it was the thing because it's this really dry, fine pellet type snow swept across the sky because you can see for miles. Watch it roll across the desert and drop snow, and that's really cool. So that's one of the neatest things.
Oh, that would have been really cool. We've been to Arches, so with all the red rock and that snow, oh my gosh, it would be so pretty.
Other hobby is jeeping, so I've got a jeep. It's not super big, but it's big in some interesting places. Driving it around the desert is just super fun. Get back to where nobody else is, right?
Hmm. No, that one sounds scary to me. I'm sorry. I'm on board with all your other hobbies. That one sounds very scary. I'm not adventuresome in that way.
When it was August and it was
Woo!
4 one day,
Oh.
the ranger tells you basically on your way in, like, nobody else out there. There's one person, and he's leaving today, so you'll pass him, and that's it. So we get way back in the Canyonlands National Park and get back to our campsite and hear voices echoing up the canyon.
What?
Rather interesting. Cool little place called the Dollhouse, so that's all rock spires
Mhm.
and passageways. I'm like, who the hell is back here with us? And after looking around for a while,
Mhm.
figured out the echoes were coming up from the river. Rafters were drifting through the park, and so I talked to the rafters and stuff, but it was kind of funny.
How cool.
So just neat experiences being out there.
I mean, for a little bit, it was haunted. I mean, that's really fun.
It was cool because you what it was saying, but you could hear for sure voices. So it was just say, what the heck is this moment?
That is so cool. Now that's got to end up in a book someday, right?
Oh yeah, no, I love desert settings too, so I'm anxious to write one of those. But
Mm.
Midwest, just because that's where I grew up, and I love the Ozarks, and I don't think enough awesome books are placed in this beautiful place because people think of other landscapes first, but
Mm.
gorgeous here. So
That's awesome.
I'll get to it.
Eventually, there's a lot more writing left in you, I think. I can tell. Well, your bio says that you always carried well-loved sci-fi or fantasy novels in your backpack. Can you remember what some of those were?
Oh, so I can tell you a little bit about what inspired Fae Nexus a little bit. So I've gotten some questions about where the word Fae comes from as far as a power.
Hmm.
Usually it's fairies, right? It's
Hmm.
a reference to fairy folk.
Right.
A series called the Coldfire Trilogy by C.S. Friedman
Okay.
starts with Black Sun Rising,
Okay.
when the Fae is a power exuded by the planet itself. So humanity is kind of relocated to this planet that is full of this magical power. And I just couldn't get that.
Interesting.
So, this book, I needed to introduce that. And then when you look into the etymology of the word Fae,
Hmm.
lot more meaning to it than just the fairy folk that we think of a lot these days.
That's awesome.
Citations of some of the old translations.
Hmm.
I thought I'm just going to run with it. Other stuff, obviously, Lord of the Rings. I read that when I was 6 or 7, so
Mm.
I reread it still every few years. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Love that book. Holy moly.
Asimov's Foundation trilogy. The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey.
Hmm. Required reading.
Guardians of the Flame by Joel Rosenberg was one of the ones that, as soon as I hit on lit RPG,
Hmm.
me back to this, it's a portal fantasy with D&D players that get sucked into their D&D world by their game master.
They were ahead of the time.
this is really cool.
Yeah.
To see it reflected in a more modern, burgeoning genre was super fascinating. So that kind of brought me to it.
That's so cool.
What else? Newer stuff is like V.E. Schwab's Darker Shade of Magic is excellent.
That one's on my list. I've not read it yet, but I've heard awesome things.
She and Naomi Novik, Spinning Silver, stuff like that. So
Nice.
my grandma was a bookseller, and I didn't know what she was doing at the time, but she would bring books that had their covers torn off.
Who cares? Take them. Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Turns from bookstores who were
Yep.
going to burn them, and she couldn't stand seeing them destroyed, so she gave them to me to read first.
So cool.
So
Oh my gosh. That would be so cool. So, well, I'm assuming that writing started as a hobby, just like many of these other ones. What was the push that set you on the route to a published author?
I don't know. So I wrote when I was in grade school a little bit here and there, and enjoyed that, and then got distracted as I am wont to do by other. And I wrote some poetry and actually had a poem or two published, just like local newspaper type stuff. Just got took up a different career for a while. I'm a computer programmer by trade for years, and then I just couldn't get away from the feeling that it was worth coming back to because I read all the time.
All the time. Mm-hmm.
I had ideas and would play with language. I loved playing with words, playing with language, and then started writing again. I just started going through the traditional kind of ringer right when indie started to come about. So I went to some writing conferences to kind of learn the craft a little bit more and learn what the business was like more, and got some nibbles and babies and won a few contests, and that gave me some hope, which was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized I needed to do it at my own pace and in my own way, and so indie publishing was the route that I really grabbed onto. And then as a result of getting to know a bunch of awesome people, so I met a bunch of really cool folks in the lit RPG genre, a bunch of cool indie authors and indie publishers, like small publishers. Traditional model, just on a slightly smaller than Big Four scale. These people
Just like us.
to work with, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of the people that I met and just absolutely adored were the Shadow Alley folks. So James,
They're awesome. Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Dakota and Danielle as well from Mountaindale, and then a bunch of the other indie authors in lit RPG. Charles Dean was really awesome and welcoming, and Nathan Thompson and a bunch of other authors. And this was just such a cool community. I couldn't help myself. I was like, I have to write in this. I've been the 80s. It's the perfect mesh. I still have my old dice where you had to rub the crayon in the numbers to get them to show up.
That's awesome.
It was just a natural fit, and eventually I ended up talking to James and Jeanette and was like, yeah, let's talk seriously, and we did. And so that's how it all kind of happened. But it's been a long, crazy, twisty road.
Yeah. Takes time, right? Takes time to actually learn. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, I think that's funny. So part of the reason why you became a published author is because you wanted to hang with these other authors. I love that because that's part of my reason too. I was like, dude, I really like these authors. I want to hang with them. How do I join this club? I have to write. All right, I better learn.
Stories, and always had ideas, and always
Yep.
just the natural next step.
That's so cool. For the record, Florida Kevin thinks he's funny. Because he says the entomology of the word fae, is that where fairies get their insect wings? All right, smart Alec, etymology. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? Etymology, no end. Yes, that's funny. I mean, he thinks he's funny because he is.
That's me, dude.
So wondering, how long did it take you to write the first book?
Man, I don't know. Probably. So it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different ideas. Gestating for a while, but I had probably that first conversation about it concretely was at Super, so I published it a little less than a year later. It went through a few different iterations, and I write really non-linearly, so I don't start at the beginning and write through to the end.
Really?
Plot, but I also quickly destroy the plot as I'm writing.
But isn't there math involved in your stories? How do you do that with the math?
So I told you I was a programmer, right?
Right?
I actually wrote my game system in a programming language that I can run. Change a stat, I can go back to the chapter that the stat changes in and rerun the whole book, and it's dice again. Like, I physically back my rolls, but it will go recalculate the bonuses that get added to the rolls that I actually rolled while I was writing. Just turns a hit into a miss or something like that. Like actually rolling the dice almost all the way through, but if they level up or change powers or something, I can swap it out in the program.
That's so awesome. There's a part where over engineering comes, it's a benefit. For this, it is a benefit.
It cost me some time, but it also saved me time in the end, so I'm not sure if it was really a gain or net loss.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, Og was asking about lit RPG, that a game world is tied to the story. Yeah. So, well, correct me if I'm wrong. So lit RPG, you have people in like a regular world that are actually, like you said, portal fantasy. So they're actually sent into a game world. But in lit RPG, they actually have to play the game.
Yeah, so
like they level, they.
A couple of ways to look at it. The primary thing that's indicative of the genre is that a game system exists and it to drive the narrative. So the characters are aware of it and make some decisions based on it. Choice to pursue a particular class, power, or quest drives the story. Around that, you can do lots of different things. You can have a fantasy world where a game system is just normal in that world. So like Greyblood Academy is an example of this. It's totally second world fantasy. They happen to have stat sheets, and that's normal for their way of life. You can have virtual reality transfer, and that was one of the genre really came to life.
Yeah, that's a Viridian Gate, right?
Yeah, Viridian Gate is an example of that. And then there's also Isekai or Portal, and that's where a person from Earth, or it doesn't have to be Earth. So if you look at Rogue Dungeon, it's somebody from a different fantasy world goes into a game, and then experiences a change in their world, in that world, because they're not used to having a game system, and suddenly they're confronted with prompts and quests and boxes and numbers and stuff. So that's an interesting twist on the genre.
It is a twist. I haven't seen that one.
Lit RPG Apocalypse, which is where the game system appears for some reason, whether it's an alien game show or a new magic system invading Earth and reconnecting. So those are the varieties of lit RPG. But in each of those, is aware of the game system and it drives their behavior, which is why like Ready Player One is fine, because there is a game and it's involved in the narrative, but especially in the movie there's very little action driven specifically around advancing the power set within the game, but it's there on the edge.
It wants to be, just couldn't quite get there.
And there's crunchy and non-crunchy, so a lot more numbers. Readers want to play along and do their own math and see what kind of decisions they would make, or imagine themselves flubbing the dice roll along with the character. People don't want to see all the numbers and prefer the game lit, which is a little bit less crunchy. So They're both a lot of fun.
They're both fun.
Crunchy end though. There's actually dice rolls mid combat, which some people hate and some people love. Kind of like watching a D&D game, because I used to love the D&D manuals. I would flip through. I would actually go to the examples, watch a game session get played out in the example section, because they would dice rolls and the character design. I loved that. And I think that's part of why I love the genre.
You're like, wait, I can do that. I totally get it. I have it impressed upon my brain. So cool. Yeah, I like it. I don't think I could see me doing game lit, but lit RPG it really is too much math for me. I don't think I could keep up with it. So.
A lot of fun as well, right? It has a lot of the mechanisms in place without usually an explicit system prompt of some sort. But there are blends of the two, like Hugh fights with monsters, cultivation like 1,000 Li, but they all give you that sense of progression throughout the story, which is really important.
It's nice. I do understand that. I do like my MMORPGs, so I get it, right? From that point of view. And I know you said you like those too. Right now, is there any game you're playing that you're like totally into?
I mean, I tried New World, Amazon's MMO, and it was okay for a while. And it's just fiddle around with the different weapons and stuff. Kind of meh, after it asked for me. So I'm really just sort of sitting on my hands and waiting for the next thing. I'm not sure. Maybe Ashes of Creation, or I'll go back to some single player thing for a little bit and just fiddle around with Witcher again.
That's what I picked up at Christmas. I'm like, I'm just going to play Witcher 3 again. You never know, right? When you pick up a game, and right now I just want something comforting that I already am familiar with. It's been a few years. Witcher 3. Yeah, that's what I can do.
A bunch of lit RPG authors got together on fired up Discord and downloaded the game on the first day and played it together for a week straight, and it was just a blast.
Now that would be fun, right? Just play with your friends who make this anyways. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Were you all secretly hoping to be sucked into the game? Come on, admit it.
We were all hoping.
You're like, it could happen. It could totally happen.
We can do it.
Let's face it, we don't really know what Bezos is doing behind closed doors, right? I mean, he could be working up this whole AI thing to suck us all in. You never know.
Telling.
Never know. Let's see. Sorry, I had lots of fun with that. Now I forgot where I was. So from all this writing and publishing and stuff that you've done, what is the most interesting or craziest thing that you've learned about this business?
Oh man, I don't know. It's all nuts. The business is just crazy. So, I mean, just learning all the tools and tricks of the trade, like books, is interesting. About what the heck Amazon is actually doing with your books.
Yes, it's educated guess at best.
The most fascinating thing was listening to Steve Campbell and Marley Watson record my first audiobook.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Amazing, because on Discord, Marley would drop by and do some scenes with him and some scenes she did separately in her own studio space. And to listen to Steve work through, it's incredible the dedication that they have, like those narrators, to say the line and then think, oh, I didn't quite get the rhythm and the feeling right, and say it again and then say it again, and then until it's nailed. It's really
it is impressive.
The process was really amazing. And I use music software. I write some music and used to DJ as well, so yet another.
One more.
We talked to Steve about, oh, hey, are you using this kind of compression, or how's this, work in a booth versus just because I just write music on studio monitors locally. I don't have to record anything. So it was really interesting just to be able to talk about his recording process and how they glued their parts together and everything. It's really neat.
That would be fun to watch it live. I have to look into that.
But like the duet narration is amazing, where they do line by line splicing of their parts together. incredible.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It's totally different than Duel, where it's just chapter by chapter, male POV or female POV, which is all.
Mm-hmm.
But Duet is a whole different bag of worms.
It's awesome. Why not? We're allowed. We're writers. I mean, we made the metaphors up. Works for me. So, out of all of your characters, which one do you relate to the most?
I mean, Gage, for better or worse, is kind of a self-insert, right? He's suffered some loss. He loves being out in the woods, wants to reconnect with his friends, loves to toy with things, so he likes to try to play with his woodcrafting and spell making. He spends time in his little imaginary spellcrafting worlds to build things, and it has to do with his crafting skills, like how he relates to the world around him is how he constructs new spells. And
That's so cool.
for better or worse, it's my debut book. I
Mhm.
need the excuse. I admit a little bit of a self-insert.
I think that's where a lot of us start. Makes sense to me. No, makes sense to me.
The whole ensemble, like Perry is such a badass, and Annie is she's an old moonshiner, and man, she's my grandma through and through, and I miss her.
That's so cool.
Definitely reflections of my family and my growing up in there.
So cool. I have to say, when you talked about the hollers, I think it was in one of the titles there, and I had another friend of mine talk about hollers, but she was all like West Virginia and like, the other mountains. So you have hollers in Ozark Mountains too.
Oh yeah. I went instead of holler, but we say holler a lot.
Oh, gotcha. Oh yeah, it was hollow. That's right. Yeah.
You'll hear more in Appalachia.
Right. That's why I was connecting it. So I was surprised with the Ozark connection.
But yeah.
Very interesting. Um, let's see. So if you were forced, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you got to be careful laying the dialect in too thick.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's always a problem back and forth. You never know. It depends on what you're going for. But yeah, I had a friend's husband who wouldn't even read Harry Potter just because Hagrid had the dialect part in his thing. I'm like, come on, man, it's one character. This is the whole reason not to read the book. What is wrong with you? But yeah, some people are like that. So yeah,
That's true.
it is what it is.
Pretty mild even.
Right? Well, in my opinion, that just means this book wasn't for you. That's all, right? There are lots of other books to read. Choose something else. This one apparently is not for you.
Right? There's
Can
somebody who hates a piece of art that somebody else loves. It's
absolutely.
with art varies so widely.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has a piece of art that they love that somebody else hates, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
just hate it when people think that that's the only valid perspective.
Right. Or judge on it, right? Yeah.
The hell do you like this? That's crazy.
Right.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Discussion about art is crazy to me.
I agree.
We all bring our own biases to everything.
We kind of do. We can't help it. Darn human beings. If no, yeah, we're not. Yeah, we're just gonna keep writing books. Okay, that's all we got. Um, right. Um, let's see. We heard Lena talk to a person earlier today who refused to read books because they might learn something. What? What? I just said we shouldn't be judgmental, but man, I went right into judgmental mode with that. I mean, that was really hard for me not to be judgmental about. Like, you don't want to learn something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be foreign.
Coming, right? You're just like,
I
can't handle it.
Well, there are things I don't want to know. Like if I have a favorite actor, I don't want to know anything more about that actor just in case something about them taints their performance that I love, right? So, yes, in that case, I don't want to learn, anything else. I'm very good. But we're talking, an actor's background that's not important. But not learning, I mean, come on.
It's a very broad brush to bring to the world, I think.
Yes, I agree. Or it's a very, very tiny brush. It's very tiny.
For whatever, fantasy, read a book about homebrewing or something, or read a book about history, whatever.
No, I think there's learning involved in those, Nathan. I think you're missing the point. See? It's because you love to learn so much, you can't even understand the concept, right? That's me too, right? Yeah. I'm telling you. Um, to more fun things, I have a question. This is my new question. I really like this one. If you were forced to live in your Fey world, what one tool or practice would you bring from your current life to help?
I'd bring my guitar.
Interesting. You want to be a bard? Is that going to be your character now? Do you have bards in that world? Hmm.
Something about music that always brings me happiness. And so I can come up with almost anything else. I'm pretty flexible as far as all the stuff that I've tried to do,
Hmm.
I've been able to figure out how to do.
Hmm.
So there's probably not one particular hobby or piece of equipment or whatever, if it's one of those things.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah, guitar makes sense because that's going to be something hard to make, right? Like hard to just create out of nothing. So yeah. Yeah, so that makes total sense. Yeah, my son, he plays guitar as well, and he bought just the body of a guitar, like just the wooden body, and he's so excited to be able to stain it and do all that kind of stuff. It was months ago. It's still in the box. Yeah. So
I'm assuming
yes, this one is. Yeah.
body or poplar or whatever. Yeah.
I don't even know which one, but yeah, and he was so excited about it, and yeah, it's still in the box.
Buy him like a Gibson pickup or something for it, and he'll go crazy.
Oh, he's got 2 amps because he has a bass as well. He plays bass as well. So he has one for the guitar and one for the bass because he had to have a different one. I don't know.
He has very, very specific pickups that he's gonna be going for. He's thought a lot about it. He just hasn't executed.
Move forward. That's right. That's right. I mean, in his defense, he works like 14-hour days if you include the drive, and he's only 20. So, I got to give him a little bit of credit. But
I went there
that's right.
and tore apart a guitar.
That poor guitar. What did it do to you?
That's what he did with the motorcycle.
Oh yeah, he did that too. Not when they're in pieces in your garage. Still, yes, children, we love them. Oh, don't encourage them, because that's what my daughter wants to do. So, we'll say, so we talked earlier that we met at Dragon Con. And so thank you for giving me your card so we could get you on here. It's awesome. And Superstars, are you part of the Superstars group? Is that where you met like James and Jeanette and everyone?
It is, yeah. I enjoy Superstars quite a bit. We're still deciding whether we're going to travel or not. Family conflicts that might come up. So I got that. But hopefully we'll be there if we can.
Gotcha. We will be there as long as, knock on wood, we don't test positive for COVID. Like we're all vaxxed and everything, but everyone I know is getting it. So, I have no guarantee that we're not. So as long as that doesn't happen, we'll be there.
Right on. Yeah.
It is. It is. That one of our groups where we're talking all the time. We're like, it feels inevitable now. It just feels we've done everything we can to protect, and it just feels inevitable. So I'm like, can I get it now? Because that gives me 2 weeks to recover. I mean, where do we need to go so that I'll be safe by Superstars? So thinking about all these events that we like to go to, and have you had, as you said earlier, it's really important to talk to other writers and other people in this business and to see what's going on and to network. Have you had any encounter that really changed your life?
I don't know if it's life-changing, but it was a cool moment. So the Writing Excuses podcast has been around for quite a while.
Love that one.
That crew, so they did writing retreats at Mary Robinette Cole's house, and then they moved it onto a cruise ship. And so we went to the first and the second cruises there. Mary and Dan and Howard and Brandon all taught.
That'd be so cool.
It was such a small group, and I have the luck to have been drawn to have dinner with Brandon Sanderson, and it was crazy because we were about computer programming, and he said, "Oh yeah, that uses a whole lot of the same muscles that writing uses, so it's
Mhm.
it's exhausting
Mhm.
macro level and at a micro level at the same time because you're putting a whole together with these tiny parts that make it up."
And a ridiculous amount of decision making. Yeah,
We had a great conversation about that, and then we talked,
that's so cool.
and he handed me
Mhm.
one of his next, the next Way of Kings book, which was just blew my mind. Like, yeah, here, check it out. This is how I outline. So I got his unpublished book for a minute, outlines.
That's so cool.
Like all night long because he's a night owl. So he would just
Mhm.
in the conference room until 2 or 3 in the morning with us. We could ask any questions we wanted, anything, and he would talk about whatever we felt like. It was really
That's so cool.
giving guy and such a
Mhm.
professional. Like until you meet people, sometimes you don't realize just how thoroughly professional they are as writers. And that guy is through and through an expert at what he does and the industry around it. So it was eye-opening,
Mhm.
an artistic perspective, but an amazing business perspective as well.
It makes sense. He has both minds.
And then, years later, that's what it gave me something to look for when I talked to folks at Superstars and 20 Books and
Mhm.
James and Jeanette, right? They gave off this,
Mhm.
like, we know this is
Yep.
what we're doing.
Mhm.
That gave me some confidence,
Mhm.
the right questions to ask, stuff like that. So it was super cool.
It's so cool. I love it. Well, he's one of the founders of Superstars for a reason. Definitely believes in the business of writing too. Mhm.
Busy, he'd come back.
Right. Well, I'm one. Well, sometimes you look at somebody who's like been successful, like with this one book, and they wrote and they're really successful, and you look at them and they're like, not Brandon. Holy moly, you're like, anything, Brandon. You're like, you've earned every darned thing that you have. Everything that man has worked his behind off. So, I mean, that is what I respect. It's impressive. He's earned it all. So I like that. He does works his behind off and still takes care of his family. I mean, what more could you want? So I just love it.
Great.
Yeah, love that man. Do you have your Fae Nexus series planned out, or are you waiting to see how far you can take the story?
I have arcs, so I'm
Okay.
going to bring the small town regional arc
Hmm.
to some level of fruition in book 3, and then
Mm,
what happens if there's a following trilogy after that. I think I'd like to expand it, but I also have a couple of other projects in mind, so
mm,
just working on book 3 and
mhm.
page upon page of notes and fun ideas and cool stuff that I want to try. So yeah, I think Fae Nexus can expand quite a bit, but I think it'll stages and kind of bounce in and out of it. So I
Gotcha.
idea of like up to 6, 9 books, something like that. I like trilogies.
Makes sense to me. We were raised that way. Again, our brain is kind of programmed like that.
Changes and the world changes, and so the books have done really well. Uh,
Hmm.
but as an indie, I want to show some breadth. I want to show some creativity in different ways too. So, to show people I'm here to stay and I have a variety of ideas. It's not just this one story. Uh, so over the next couple of years, I hope to be able to show a lot of that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we look forward to watching your journey. And we have had an awesome discussion. We're on the lightning round. So here we go for the lightning round. Are you ready?
Lightning.
Yeah, yeah, only if you ask nicely. No, okay. So it's the
Only
quick
if we roll
answers.
high enough.
That's right. All right, here we go. When you sit down to write, what's the first thing you do?
Drink more coffee.
Oh, excellent. Okay, coffee. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Black walnut.
Oh, haven't had that one before. That's a new one. I like it. All right, Og, I got your question. I put it in. Ready? Here's Og's question. Can zombies climb? It's a very important question. Oh, there you go, Og.
Nice dexterity for constitution.
Oh, I see. Spoken like a true role player. I'm so impressed. Coffee or tea? Oh, well, you just said coffee, didn't you?
Mostly coffee, but I had some tea tonight.
Oh, nice. Not beer? Oh, just for the record, Zafo's so disappointed. Who is your beer earlier? You're like, maybe I should be sober for the interview. No, not this interview. No.
I realized right before this that we're chilling more porter tomorrow to drink, but I don't have a cold one right now.
Gotcha.
Porter to drink that's only 4 weeks old, so we're letting it age a little bit at a time and drinking one every week or two, so we kind of note how it changes. We also get beer that's going to be old enough to taste this weekend, and brown ale, a nutty brown ale, which is awesome. So we have 3 different flavors we can try this weekend. So sorry to disappoint, but I swear we're planning.
Oh, I'm not disappointed. I don't even drink beer. Blech, it's all his thing. Who is your favorite band or musician?
Oh God, that's like asking my favorite book. It's okay. So I like everything from metal to blues to folk. So like Stevie Ray Vaughan's amazing. I think is incredible. Like just so creative and just wild how he bootstraps himself up. As a guitarist, Joe Satriani, incredible. I saw him live years ago. Unbelievable. God, so many more.
Yeah, you sound like my son. Those are like his lists.
Yeah. I mean, fun little bands, This Way to the Egress, the Double Clicks, they're a blast. Everything. I like everything. I covered, like when I was in high school, I covered everything from Pantera to Van Halen to Skid Row and stuff like that. So I played a variety of things, and I love a variety of music.
Like I must have them all.
And I actually spin electronica, so into house music too, and trance and all kinds of stuff. There's very little music that I can't get some enjoyment out of one way or another.
That's awesome. Spoken like a true lover of music. Cats or dogs?
Both.
Both.
We mostly have cats now, so I have 3 indoor cats. We lost our outdoor dog just the other day, so last summer. I like having a dog. They're just, you got to find the right one, right? So.
It's true. That is true. Or the first one that shows up at your door. That's the one we usually take in. And what is your least favorite chore around the house?
My least favorite chore. Oh, man, that's a hard one. I don't know. I almost always do the dishes and vacuum. So probably vacuuming up cat vomit. Back to the cat and dog question.
Yes, that would not be a fun chore. I'm with you 100%. We're like, yeah, we're like, we have tile right there. Couldn't you just tile right there, please? It would be very convenient for us. Excellent. Well, Nathan, this was so much fun. Now that you are our favorite author, where can fans find you and your work?
I am on Facebook. So there's a ton of fantastic lit RPG communities on Facebook, lit RPG books, and the Gamelit Society and lit RPG. So they're awesome groups. They have great discussions, awesome people recommending all kinds of stuff. So you'll find I have a page. So if you search for my fairly unique name, it's hard not to find me. And yeah, pretty much there. So my books are on Amazon. They're all in Kindle Unlimited, and book 1 is on Audible, and book 2 should be released on Audible any minute now. We finished recording, and we've got it proofed and everything, so I'm sure that it'll be up anytime.
Sweet. I'm glad we're not the only one that's always a little bit farther behind on Audible than on the audio than anything else. Like we're trying, it takes more hours, like in the short term. Like once the book's done.
It's hard to predict, like when will they really let it go.
Takes time, man. Takes time. Awesome. Well, now that Nathan is your new favorite writer, please make sure to review his work. You can also review us wherever it is you get your podcast. You can follow on twitch.tv/cursedragonship or subscribe on cursedragonship.com/YouTube. And we will see you next week where we interview D.L. Young. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.